Hello and welcome everyone. Time to record the first Journey into Nyx video here on Drafting with Simon for StarCityGames.com. Two rares in the pack, one of them foil, Revel of the Fallen God and Deicide. I'm not sure if I like either of them. 7 mana, red-green card, and also instant speed enchantment removal aren't really all that exciting in this format. Underworld Coinsmith is powerful, but black-white would be an option if we wanted to force that color combination. Crystalline Nautilus I think is fine, but I'm not the biggest fan that it's so easy to kill. And then there is Supply Line Cranes and a Crone Mastiff, so two of the best white commons in the pack. All the other commons are strictly worse, so it's between a white card, a white-black card, and maybe the Crystalline Nautilus. I'm gonna go with the Crone Mastiff because I think that it's better than Supply Line Cranes. It's not by a large margin, but I really want to have at least one tapper in my deck, so I'm gonna pick Crone Mastiff over the first Supply Line Cranes in general. Eidolon of the Great Revel is not exciting. There is a couple of black-white enchantments here, Nyx Fleece Ram and Grim Guardian in particular. I really would like to try the Grim Guardian archetype, where you just pick as many of them as possible, usually going white-black because of Scholar of Athreos in the Theros pack. I did not pick the Underworld Coinsmith, so my signaling isn't perfect in that regard. However, let's look at the alternatives. Nyx Reaver is double colored black-green. It is a fine card if you end up in the right colors. Nyx Fleece Ram is unexciting, so that's not something I'm looking at. And the commons aren't really offering anything that would be considered the best common in the color. A Grim Guardian might be a bit underrated, but usually you are looking for other black cards. Cloaked Siren is solid, but not better than Warring Siren and other blue cards. And yeah, Ravenous Lucre Coda is also worse than Oakheart Dryads or Golden Hind. I'm gonna pick the Grim Guardian and see if that works out, and if not, I can still switch colors pretty easily. Alright, Worst Fear is a mythic, but not something I'm excited about. Paying 8 mana is just a little bit too much. So that leaves Skyspear Cavalry as a powerful white card. I really like that one. Double Strike is just insane in this format. And looking at the commons again, nothing to get too excited about. Blade Tusk Boar is probably the best option when it comes to power level, and even that isn't the most exciting pick. I'm gonna go with Skyspear Cavalry. I think that Ritual of the Returned is pretty much unplayable. Worst Fear is only in very, very specific decks. And Cyclops of Eternal Fury is not a card I would be excited about picking up at any early point, really. I'm getting past Fellhide Petrifier, which is really, really sweet. And you can usually just pick up some random Minotaurs as well. In black-white, it's worse because white doesn't have any Minotaurs as far as I know. So, but it's still a 2/3 Death Touch, and Death Touch is one of the best abilities in the format. I like the Petrifier better than the other black-white options. The removal spells aren't really interesting. Harvest God Elseits is more interesting in a more aggressive deck. So I actually think that Ajani's Presence would be the second best card in my colors. Looking at the cards outside of the colors I've picked so far, none of them come even close to the Petrifier, so I'm going to take that. And there is a Strife spell in white. Now the Strife spells are pretty nice if they don't cost too much to strife them. However, I don't think that giving a creature double strike, or any number of creatures double strike, is exactly what you want to be doing. Often if you attack with a creature into a better defensive board, then you can't only give double strike because you will not come out ahead in the trade. You might be able to trade with the opposing creatures, but if your opponent's blocks are good, then you don't really get value from giving double strike. The cards I like the most here, and I'm gonna pick a black or white card, is Stonewise Fortifier, which I think is better than the Elseits and the Formation. And I also kind of like Dreadbringer Lampests because evasion is just so good in this format. Because I have the Grim Guardian, I want to prioritize enchantments. And I also think that the value of 2-drops did go down a little bit now that Journey into Nyx is in the mix. This gives me the Lampests, and there would be the option to pick another one, which I might actually do because Cruel Feeding is a card that I really don't like. I'm also not really aiming towards any kind of heroic deck. And Harvest God Elseits, as I said, first of all, it's really replaceable, and I want the Constellation triggers to do a lot more than that. I'm going to pick up another 5-drop, making my deck quite expensive already, but I am moving into black-white, so this is probably the color combination that can afford to be a bit more slow. Bloodcrazed Hoplite is a nice pickup. I'm glad to see that 7th pick. The only real alternative is Goldforged Sentinel, and I don't need a 6-mana flyer when I can have a powerful 2-drop instead. Okay, looks like there's at least some more cards for me here. Nyx's Infusion is a removal spell, better than Returned Reveler, which is really just a 2-drop. And Oppressive Race I will only play in aggressive decks, so that that my opponents will rarely have the choice to actually pay the mana for it. Nyx's Infusion is exactly the card I want here. It is an enchantment, so it triggers my Guardian and the 2 Lamparts, and also deals with most troublesome permanents like Wingsteed Rider, if you have it at the exact right moment. I'm not a big fan of it, but 8th pick is definitely a nice time to pick it up. And look at that, I wasn't even dreaming of this happening. Underworld Coinsmith wheeled, so I could just move into black-white, even if white isn't really open from the packs. I can just basically draft a white-black deck on the power of Underworld Coinsmith, maybe Scholar of Athreos if I get it. I'm passing Cast into Darkness, which would also be nice in this deck, but wheeling Underworld Coinsmith is phenomenal, so I'm definitely going to take it. This decision is between Armament of Nyx and Aspect of Gorgon. Both of them don't draw a card, but they will have a nice effect. Now, the Armament that works really well with the 2 Dreadbringer Lamparts that I already have, giving them a double strike and evasion for a turn. I like Aspect of Gorgon, and I think it's also a fine card, but I'm going to take the Armament here. I don't like it as much in general right decks, but this could be the right deck for it. Alright, Ritual of the Return allows me to create a zombie, but it depends on how strong the creature is I remove from my graveyard. I'm not a fan of that card at all. Rotted Hulk is also quite replaceable, so I'm going to take the Cruel Feeding here. It is a way to target my creatures. It is a 1-mana combat trick, but I don't want to play it ever. And then there is Returned Reveler and Oppressive Race. I've talked about Oppressive Race. It is an enchantment, and it might be better than the Reveler, because the Reveler is just not great. Yeah, I'm going to take the Race, and I hope that I won't have to play them. Deserter's Quarters is actually kind of playable with you spending 6 mana to tap down an arbitrary creature. I think that if the format is slow enough, or if you're facing an opponent that has puts all eggs in one basket and then creates like one huge creature, then the Quarters can actually be really good. Alright, lots of good cards here. Satyr Nyxsmith is a card I really like. Searing Blood, very efficient. Fall of the Hammer, in my opinion, the best red common in Born of the Gods. And then also some nice cards for me. Odonis River Trawler works really well with what I have so far. Nyxborn Eidolon is solid, and even Griffin Dreamfinder wouldn't be the worst if it wasn't for the 5-drops that I already have. There is always a chance to wheel Odonis River Trawler, because I'm most likely the only black-white drafter, especially after wheeling the Underworld Coinsmith. On the other hand, Nyxborn Eidolon is a lot weaker than the River Trawler. And there's an effect that I actually want the Nyxborn Eidolon even more badly if I have the River Trawler. So I don't really think that I can make the correct decision here, or the right decision. I will most likely be punished no matter what I do. But I think that the power level of Odonis River Trawler warrants picking it here. It does return the Coinsmith, the Grim Guardian, and both Dreadbringer Lamparts, meaning that it's going to be a superb card advantage engine all by its own. Siren Songlyre got quite a lot better now that you have a little more time with your creatures. I don't think that you should second pick it, but you should definitely keep it in mind that Siren Songlyre is a lot more playable now. I'm looking at Nyxborn Shieldmate simply because it's a cheap creature that also works as a bestow creature. It triggers all my Constellation cards, and yeah, I'm not a fan of Fellite Brawler. It wouldn't really work on defense, even with Death Touch, and the remaining cards are just not very exciting. I think I can wheel Griffin Dreamfinder or Siren Songlyre from this pack, maybe even the Fellite Brawler, but I'm gonna take Nyxborn Shieldmate. I like Nyxborn Shieldmate more in aggressive decks, but it's still going to be a good card for what I'm trying to do. Drown in Sorrow is a card that I always think is really exciting and good, but looking at my 5 and 4 drops, all of them die to my own Drown in Sorrow, so the only way to really use it would be to sit there, not cast anything, and then cast the Drown in Sorrow, hoping to develop my board afterwards, and I think that's just too weak of a strategy in this format. So I'm probably forced to take Excoriate here, which is fine and better than Raid of the Underworld. I'm passing some powerful cards, a Chrome Conscriptor, Krogma Butcher, Retraction Helix, and of course the Drown in Sorrow itself. But one Excoriate is a pretty nice pickup. Ferrous Enlightenment is super strong, but I'm solidly in black-white here. So my options are Archetype of Finality, Weight of the Underworld, and Oresco's Sunguide. Oresco's Sunguide would be another 2-drop, but I'm not sure if I really want the non-enchantment 2-drop here. If I can pick an enchantment instead. Weight of the Underworld and Archetype of Finality are both enchantments that trigger what I'm trying to do. I really like the Archetype, but I'm also quite concerned that it costs 6 and that I might not have the time to really use it. I'm gonna pick Weight of the Underworld here. That's a pick that I would have never made without Journey into Nyx. I would have always gone for the Sunguide, but I think I will be heavily black, and I want my enchantment count to be high as possible. This looks like a pretty easy Servant of Timurat. It's better than Marshmist Titan and Mortal's Ardor, and Necrobite is not very interesting for me. I really need creatures, and all the non-creatures that I want to play should be enchantments if at all possible. So Servant of Timurat I'm really happy about picking up here. Siren of the Silent Song, another gold card. We've seen the blue-white one and the black-blue one. Both of them I can't really play, so that's kind of unfortunate. I could pick the Griffin Dreamfinder here, as it will always generate value. I'm a bit concerned about the double white casting cost. Alternatively, there's Fellhide Brawler. Yeah, not the biggest fan. Oh, by the way, I said that if I give it Death Touch with the Petrify, it wouldn't really work on defense. That's of course not true, because then I would have another Minotaur in play. I think I'm just taking it because I have been neglecting 2-drops until now, but it's not the kind of 2-drop that I would want. I would want Returned Phalanx, for example, just something that can consistently block, and Fellhide Brawler is kind of the opposite of that. Grisly Transformation is actually quite playable. It's worse than Repo is Zone, that's clear, but I have all these enchantment themes, and Grisly Transformation, maybe it might be a bit too aggressive for what I'm trying to do, but I want my enchantments, and if they draw cards, that's even better. Okay, this is the point where I could pick up a Necrobite. It's probably better than Warchander of Mogis and Gorgon's Head, so yeah, I'll just take it. It's a card I really like. I just don't think that this deck necessarily has too much interest in playing it. Could pick up a second Griffin Dreamfinder, but all the other 5-drops are already better. So I'm going to take the Eye Gouge just to have it, maybe only as a sideboard card. Nobody else wants the Weight of the Underworlds, which is fine with me. I will just play 2 then. And here I could hate draft Sphinx's Disciple. Not too concerned about it though. Let's take a white card. And Marshmist Titan. Hopefully I won't be playing all these marginal cards, but I'm getting a lot of playables. I'm sticking to my plan of having black as my main color, even though I don't have any double black cards yet. The Devotion theme of Theros will probably give me maybe a Grey Merchant, maybe a Disciple of Phoenix, who knows. Looks like I'm getting Erebos' Emissary here. Anax and Samedi, definitely not a pick for me. Tormented Hero, far too aggressive for what I'm trying to do. Erebos' Emissary, in a sense, is exactly what I want. It's an enchantment, it's a creature, and it's quite aggressive. It also bestows, so yeah, there's nothing that comes close to that. And there's the first Grey Merchant, so we might just slam that. I don't think I need Divine Verdict with the amount of removal that I already have, and Grey Merchant is definitely better than Bloodtroll Harpy. Also, even with that many 5-drops, Grey Merchant is still just really, really good. Okay, now things get a little weaker here. Fellhide Minotaur and Gardens of Meletis are not exciting. Divine Verdict is definitely playable. And there's Temple of Triumph, which I could just run as a white source that also scries. Divine Verdict is a nice spell in this format. I will be tapping out a lot though. It's really a question of how much space I will have in my deck to even run cards like Divine Verdict if I already have that many interactive cards, and I will only be running 23 non-lands. So because I have so many playables, I will go with the Temple of Triumph as a small bonus land rather than more removal, which I will probably be picking up anyway. Soldier of the Pantheon, the ability is not very relevant, but it's another 1-drop that I could run. Alternatively, I pick up Lash of the Whip or Vanquish the Foul. I actually think that Vanquish the Foul is often the better choice. But here, I'm gonna fix my mana curve a little bit by taking Soldier of the Pantheon. I have picked up so much removal that that's not a big priority right now. Okay, and I guess I'm forced to pick a Lash of the Whip. I could pick Scorch Mark instead, but Scorch Mark is just, well, it is an aura, it is an enchantment, so it triggers Constellation, and it draws a card, which is, I actually think it's better than Grisly Transformation, and Lash of the Whip costs 5, so it would make my deck even more clunky. Yeah, I'm going with the Scorch Mark instead. Convinced myself there. Cavern Lampad, quite an easy pick, better than Cutthroat Maneuver and Glare of Heresy, and another Bestow creature, which is the best I can think of for this deck. Second Grey Merchant of Asphodel, I'm taking that, and I'm very happy about it. And a Scholar of Athreos to round things out. So now I really have super high power level here. Ordeal of Heliod might actually make it. It is an enchantment after all. And yeah, now we are just getting all the black cards. And a Fellhat Minotaur, playable, especially if you have the Petrifier already, but probably not making the main deck. I'm currently thinking that I should probably not play too many white cards in this deck. Scholar of Athreos is in, Excoriate and a Crone Mastiff are in. Maybe the Soldier of the Pantheon, and most likely the Nyxborn Shieldmaid and Chosen by Heliod, but I could see cutting the double white cards in the 5-drop slot to maximize my Grey Merchants and to make my deck as cheap as possible. I have so many cards to cut that that's actually going to be the most difficult thing when building this deck. A good place to be in. Alright, time to build this deck. I have the Temple of Triumph, I have a bunch of black cards, a few white ones, and even 2 artifacts. So I basically picked up only 1 unplayable, at least looking at the color. That's pretty impressive, I think. Impressive Race, Eye Gorge, and Cruel Feeding are not good enough. Hold at Bay will not make it. Claim of Erebos is not playable. And yeah, as it becomes clear very soon, the fact that I have so many playables means that I will have to really decide how I want my deck to look like. And one thing that I already talked about was the fact that I could just go into a very heavy black deck that only runs maybe 6 or 7 white sources. That way I will always have the mana to cast my black cards, which shouldn't really be a problem. I don't have cards that cost very much black. So I guess a 10-7 mana base is what I'm aiming at, especially because I do have a few white cards early on that I might want to play. I'm not sure about the Deserter's Quarters here, by the way. My deck seems to be too powerful to want to run a card like that. It's also not an enchantment, which is actually relevant. So playing Nyxborn Shieldmaid and Soldier of the Pantheon with only 7 white sources is pushing it. So I might be forced to cut the Soldier because I don't really want to be the aggressive deck anyway, and then just rely on my late game strategy. So from just looking at the creatures, yeah, the Fellhat Brawler is really bad also, I think. Looking at the creatures, if I cut everything that's not super important for what I'm doing, Lotto Harpy I guess could be cut as well, then I would be looking at maybe a setup like this, maybe without the Marshmist Titan, and then that's 17 creatures. However, I have quite a lot of spells that I would want to run, and Deserter's Quarters is actually not one of them. I think that's a pretty easy cut. Excoriate, 2 Weight of the Underworld is fine. Necrobite I don't think will be making it because I can't afford to play too many instants in this deck, and auras are just so much better. So that actually leaves me with Excoriate and up to 7 auras. Armament of Nyx is not a card that I'm usually too high on, but I already mentioned that I have the 2 Deadbringer Lampads and Erebos' Emissary now as well. So the armament is definitely playable. I can also cast it on an opposing non-enchantment creature. Yeah, I have a problem with the Grizzly transformation as well. It does draw a card, but it's really not my main strategy to give one of my creatures Intimidate for 3 mana. So I do have to cut only 2 more cards, and I think I could go down with 1 more creature if I wanted to, and maybe the Marshmist Titan, because it's that's like a big fatty is not how I want to win my games. And then I would need to cut one more of the enchantments, and that's between Armament of Nyx and Grizzly Transformation. Grizzly Transformation is also kind of redundant because of the Dreadbringer Lampads. It has the advantage of drawing a card, which is just makes a huge difference when you look at Armament of Nyx instead. It's also a black permanent, which makes Grey Merchant better, so I think the Armament of Nyx is losing out in the direct comparison. If I take that out, I can still bring it in if it's going to be a good removal spell, for example. Then I'm only playing the white creatures that I really want in my deck. I can put this here, to make it look a bit better even. And then I do want to have a high amount of 3-drops to compensate for my lack of 2-drops. So the Marshmist Titan is the last card that I'm going to cut. That I think makes my curve as good as possible. It makes my overall strategy as good as possible, maximizing the Black Devotion and the whole Constellation sub-theme. Yeah, I think this is a build that I'm happy with. So many options from the sideboard. Definitely not easy to say what should be in the deck and what shouldn't. Now this is gonna be a 10-6, just to be on the safe side with the white spells. I only have 6 white cards, so 7 sources is hopefully sufficient, but I do know that with 10 Swamps I should be able to cast all my spells. Only Grey Merchant is double casting cost, and that's not really an issue. Alright, let's see how this works out.